Behind Mugabe's rapid fall, a firing, a feud and a First Lady. Harare, Zimbabwe. The rapid fall of Zimbabwe's president, whose legendary guile and ruthlessness helped him outmaneuver countless adversaries over nearly 4 decades, probably has surprised no one more than Robert Mugabe himself. For years, he was so confident of his safety and his potency that he took month-long vacations away from Zimbabwe after Christmas, never facing any threat during his long, predictable absences. Even at 93, his tight grip on the country's ruling party and his control over the military made his power seem impervious to question. But in just a matter of days, Mr. Mugabe, who ruled his nation since independence in 1980, was largely stripped of his authority, even as he still clung to the presidency. In a much-anticipated speech on Sunday night, Mr. Mugabe, instead of announcing his resignation as most of the country had expected, stunned Zimbabwe by refusing to say he was stepping down. While he conceded that his country was going through a difficult patch, he gave no sign that he recognized, or accepted, how severely the ground had shifted under him in such a short time. Earlier in the day, the governing ZANU-PF party, over which he had always exercised total domination, expelled Mr. Mugabe as leader, with cheers and dancing erupting after the vote. He was given a deadline of noon on Monday to resign or face impeachment by Parliament. Continue reading the main story. Advertisement. Continue reading the main story. Just days earlier, on Wednesday, soldiers put him under house arrest, and his 52-year-old wife, Grace Mugabe, whose ambition to succeed him contributed to his downfall, has not been seen in public since. But in his speech, Mr. Mugabe even declared that he would preside over his governing party's Congress in a few weeks. After 37 years in control of the nation, he was refusing to let go easily. A fateful firing. The chain of events leading to Mr. Mugabe's downfall started on November 6, when he fired his vice president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, a close ally of the military, and then tried to arrest the nation's top military commander a few days later. Mr. Mugabe had finally come down against the military and its political allies in a long-running feud inside the governing party. He crossed the red line, and we couldn't allow that to continue, said Douglas Mejia, a leader of the War Veterans Association, a group that has acted as the military's proxy in the country's political battles while allowing uniformed generals to remain publicly neutral. A few hours after he was fired, Mr. Mnangagwa, fearing arrest, fled with a son into neighboring Mozambique, where he has strong military ties. He eventually made his way to South Africa, allies said. July Moyo, a close ally of Mr. Mnangagwa, said the vice president had prepared himself for the possibility of being fired. He accepted that things can turn very bad, so he had conditioned himself, Mr. Moyo said. Several hours before the vice president escaped to Mozambique, Christopher Mutsvangwa, the head of the War Veterans Association and one of Mr. Mnangagwa's closest allies, had boarded a plane to South Africa. Fierce infighting. The president's decision to fire his vice president and arrest the general was the culmination of a long and increasingly vicious and personal battle inside ZANU-PF, the party that has controlled Zimbabwe since independence in 1980. The so-called Lacoste faction was led by Mr. Mnangagwa, whose nickname is the Crocodile, and was backed by the military and war veterans. The rival faction was led by the president's wife and supported by the police, whose loyalty Mr. Mugabe had ensured by, among other moves, naming a nephew to a top command. This faction included mostly younger politicians with no experience in the War of Liberation and was christened Generation 40, or G40, by Jonathan Moyo, a fearless, extremely ambitious politician widely regarded as the mastermind behind this group. As Lacoste and G40 fought each other to eventually succeed Mr. Mugabe, the president did not give either side his declaration of support. To both factions, the biggest factor was Mr. Mugabe's age and increasingly visible frailty. It was only a matter of time before nature will take its course and the old man goes, as the political class said. Time was on Lacoste's side. Once nature did take its course, power would naturally slip to Mr. Mnangagwa and his military backers, they believed. Mr. Mnangagwa remained largely quiet, refraining from responding to attacks, and treated Mr. Mugabe with extreme deference. Whenever Mr. Mugabe flew home from a trip, state media invariably showed Mr. Mnangagwa greeting the president on the tarmac, displaying an almost obsequious smile and body language. To the younger members in G40, time was against them. Their biggest asset, Mrs. Mugabe, would lose all value once her husband died. So they were in a rush to get a transfer of power while Mr. Mugabe was still alive.